My name is Maria Sanchez. We survived the hurricane, or so I thought. I was 48 years old and living in Fort Myers, Florida, a place I always called paradise, despite the occasional fury of the sky. My life was a mosaic of small blessings and family worries. I was a nurse at a local clinic, a job that taught me about the fragility and resilience of the human body. My husband, Carlos, was a contractor, a man whose hands could fix anything a storm could break. We had 2 children, one in college studying to be an engineer, and our daughter Sophia in high school, her eyes full of dreams of becoming an artist. Our home was modest, but it was our universe, filled with the smell of coffee in the morning, the sound of Sophia's laughter, and Carlos's passionate debates about soccer. When Hurricane Ian was announced, we did what we always did. We boarded up the windows, stocked up on water and canned goods, and gathered in the living room, listening to the wind howl like a hungry wolf outside. The storm was the worst we'd ever seen. The sound was deafening, a symphony of destruction that seemed like it would last forever. But, like all storms, it passed. The next morning, the silence was almost as shocking as the noise. We stepped outside to see a world transformed, a battlefield of uprooted trees, neighboring roofs in our yard, and a layer of murky water covering the street. But our house was standing. Our walls had held. We were safe. We felt such an overwhelming wave of gratitude that we hugged each other and cried right there amid the wreckage. We believed the worst was over. The next few days were a marathon of hard work and sweat. The humidity was stifling, the air heavy with the smell of wet wood and mud. We were cleaning the yard, a seemingly endless task. Carlos was sawing off a massive oak branch that had fallen onto our yard, and I was dragging the smaller branches to a pile on the sidewalk. "Mary, I need help with this one," he called out, sweat streaming down his face. "I just need to lift it a bit to get a better angle." I nodded, walking toward him. To get a good leverage, I had to step sideways into a puddle of standing water that had collected near the fence. The water was murky, full of leaves and debris. I didn't think twice. The moment my foot touched the water, the world didn't explode. It was annihilated. There was no pain, no sound, only a violent white light that consumed everything. It was as if the sun itself had lodged itself inside my skull, erasing my existence, my thoughts, my identity. I felt my body being ripped from me, not like a spirit floating gently upward, but as if every atom were being ripped in opposite directions. The smell of ozone, the smell of lightning striking the ground right next to you, filled a nothingness that had no more air to fill. Then, absolute silence. And peace. A peace so deep, so complete, it was more real than anything I had ever known. I was floating, suspended in a calm, dark velvet. Below me, the scene was small, like a diorama. I saw my body lying in the water. I saw Carlos shouting my name, his face a mask of terror. I saw him drag me out of the puddle and begin chest compressions, his movements frantic and desperate. But I felt none of it. No urgency, no pain, no fear, just a calm compassion for this man I loved and this woman I had been. It was like watching a movie whose ending I already knew and knew was okay. The scene began to fade, the colors to merge, the sounds to become a distant whisper. I was being pulled, not forcefully, but with an irresistible invitation. A tiny light appeared in the darkness, not a dot, but an opening. And I moved toward it. It wasn't a tunnel like the ones we hear about in stories. It was more like being submerged in a river of liquid golden heat. The light wasn't blinding, it was nourishing. Every particle of it seemed to carry a note of a melody my soul had always known, but my brain had forgotten. Colors that didn't exist on Earth danced around me, shades of magenta and blue that were, at once, feelings of joy and acceptance. I wasn't alone. There were other presences, other points of consciousness traveling with me, but we couldn't help but be. We were all part of the same current, moving toward the same source. And then I arrived. The current deposited me on a beach, not of sand, but of pure consciousness. And before me was the source of it all. He was not a man with a beard and robe. Describing his appearance with human words is like trying to hold the ocean in a glass. He was a presence, a form made of pure empathic light, a light that cast no shadows. The feeling emanating from him was that of a million happy reunions happening simultaneously. It was the sensation of returning home after a long and incredibly difficult journey and realizing that home was not a place, but an embrace. I felt more known and loved in that moment than I had in my entire life on earth. Every mistake, every shame, every secret I had kept was exposed in his light, not to be judged, but to be understood and dissolved. Communication did not happen with sounds or words. It was a direct flow of knowledge, a transfer of truth to the core of my being. I knew I was standing before what humanity calls Jesus, the Christ, and in his presence, the weight of my world simply ceased to exist. He showed me why I was there. Without words, the reality around us shifted. We were suspended in space, staring down at planet Earth. It was a blue and white jewel spinning silently in the cosmos. But something was wrong. A thin layer, like television static or a dark, oily fog, enveloped the entire globe. It was subtle, almost invisible at first, but it was there, vibrating with a low-frequency energy, an energy of fear. He brought me closer, and I could see what made up this fog. It was billions upon billions of tiny, dark, barbed filaments. Each represented a judgmental thought, an angry word, an act of selfishness, a fear of another. I saw these filaments connecting people. I saw families sitting at the dinner table in silence, each person wrapped in their own cocoon of static, transmitting anxiety and resentment to one another without saying a word. I saw people on their phones, their faces illuminated by the blue light of the screen, absorbing this static of fear from the news and social media and radiating it back in an endless loop. The fog was thickening. I realized, with a horror that chilled my soul, that the hurricane I had survived was but a breeze, a physical event insignificant compared to this spiritual storm, this pandemic of separation that was suffocating the world. Then the vision shifted. Jesus showed me the solution, and it was so simple it broke my heart. Amidst the darkness of static, a small point of brilliant golden light appeared. I looked closer. The light was born the moment a driver in a traffic jam decided not to honk his horn and instead took a deep breath and felt compassion for the driver in front of him. Another point of light emerged when a teenage girl put down her phone to truly listen to her grandmother's story, not impatiently, but with an open heart. Another light, incredibly bright, exploded when a man forgave another for an old debt that had caused him great pain. Every act of unconditional love, every moment of genuine forgiveness, every choice of unity over division created one of these golden stars. And then, the most beautiful part, these lights began to connect. The threads of golden light stretched from one star to the next, forming a web, a network of light that began to grow over the surface of the planet. This network didn't destroy the dark static, didn't attack her. It simply existed within her, creating pockets of peace, clarity, and safety. It was a shelter. It was her only hope. It was then that his voice resounded, not in my ears, but in my very essence. "They are preparing for the wrong storm," he communicated, and the truth of those words shook me deeply. They build higher walls and stronger shelters against the wind and rain, while the storm of disconnection ravages their souls. They fear the collapse of their economies and nations, but they fail to see the collapse of compassion in their own hearts. This darkness you see, this static of fear, is the real threat. It is the illusion that you are separated from one another, The only salvation, the only shelter that will withstand what is coming, is this web of light that you yourselves must weave, strand by strand, with each conscious choice to love rather than fear. The clarity and peace of that revelation were overwhelming. I understood everything. I was home, immersed in a love that was the very fabric of the universe. And the thought of returning to that heavy, dark, and frightened world was a physical agony. Please, I begged, the feeling washing over me like a wave of despair. Don't send me back. Please, I can't. It's too painful, too heavy. I just want to stay here, with you. Jesus' presence enveloped me like a warm blanket, but his answer was firm, unwavering, and yet infinitely loving. My dear daughter, your desire to stay is proof of the love you now understand. But that is precisely why you must return. They cannot see what you have seen. They need voices to remind them. They need stories to awaken their hearts. Your mission is not to escape their storm, but to teach them how to build the ark. Return and tell them. Show them how to weave the light. Before I could protest again, I felt a violent tug, as if an invisible hook had latched onto my soul and pulled me back with cosmic force. Beauty shattered. Peace shattered into a million fragments of pain. I was being squeezed back by that river of light, but now it burned. The heat was searing, the colors were shocking, the music was a dissonant scream. I felt the crushing weight of matter bearing down on me. The cold, the pain, the feeling of being trapped in a tight, suffocating box. And then, a burst of agony in my chest, as if 1,000 needles were piercing my heart, followed by a rush of harsh, chemical air that burned my lungs. I opened my eyes. A sterile white ceiling, rhythmic, constant beeping beside me, the smell of antiseptic. I was back. I was in a hospital. The pain in my chest was unbearable, but it was proof that I was alive. A few days later, a doctor entered my room, holding a clipboard and a perplexed expression on his face. He was an older man with eyes that had seen it all. Mrs. Sanchez, he began, sitting down beside my bed. I have to be honest with you. What happened was impossible. You stepped into a puddle energized by a downed power line. Your heart stopped. According to the paramedics, you were clinically dead for at least 11 minutes before they managed to get a rhythm going again with the defibrillator. In these cases, even if the heart starts beating again, the lack of oxygen causes catastrophic and permanent brain damage. But your scans, your brain is perfectly normal. There's no damage. There's no medical or scientific explanation for your complete recovery. Honestly, in 30 years of my career, I've never seen anything like this. It's a miracle. I looked at him and simply nodded, tears streaming down my face. He didn't know the half of it. He saw the miracle of my body, but I had witnessed the miracle that could save us all. And now I am fulfilling my mission. I am telling you my story. The message I was given, the lesson I brought back from that light is this, and it is the most important thing I will ever say. Stop preparing for the wrong storm. The real threat is not in the sky, nor in the economy, nor in governments. The most dangerous storm is the one raging within our own hearts, the storm of fear, judgment, and division. Strengthen your hearts. Build a shelter of love and forgiveness around you. Every time you choose compassion over anger, every time you choose unity over separation, you are weaving a thread of golden light. That is the only shelter that will withstand what is coming. That is the only ark that will carry us safely to the other shore.